welcome to A Philosopher's View on Religious Miracles. I am the philosopher. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we're going to be looking at that. All right, so start off. What is a miracle? Though each religion is different in how they view God or like a creator, most of the Abrahamic religions believe that that God is orchestrating and controlling every event in the world, and therefore life is kind of an act of God. But what is special about a miracle is that it's an event that seems to have no other explanation than it being an act of God, or deity, or saint, or whatever. I think most of us had a miracle happen to them, or like somebody. Sorry, somebody that had a miracle happen to them, and a lot of times it happens medically. I know I have. But do these events really have no other explanation? And let's see what philosophers think. Okay, so these are mostly Catholic, Christian-centric, and I think that's what I'm going to be talking about most of the time. So, sorry. Miracle of the Sun. This is like a very, very popular miracle. 3 kids. This is in Portugal. They came to like this field or whatever, saw Mary. Mary said that she'll show herself and prove to the world, or prove to everyone, that there's God. There's this big prophecy. The word spread around Fatima, and lo and behold, over 3,000 people showed up, and there was this moment, I think it was pouring rain and storming, and then the sun came out, everyone turned dry, and then they saw the sun moving. Some people saw like actual events. Some people saw like actual like saints, and other people saw nothing. But it was just this like massive event where everyone kind of thinks that it's like God proving himself. And this happened like very recently, in only 1917. And if you compare that to like miracles like the resurrection and Jesus walking on water and the fish and loaves, like that is so far removed from what we're talking about. And there's also the stigmata. And this is like a phenomenon where somebody will have the wounds of Jesus from the crucifixion on, like, given onto them. So whether that be like on the hands, the feet, the side where he was cut. This happens it doesn't happen all the time, but I think this most notably happened to St. Francis of Assisi. It's very painful, and it's supposed to be like a reminder of God existing. And yeah. So let's go into philosophers' views. This is David Hume. He wrote Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. He wrote that a miracle is an event that violates the laws of nature. And so he kind of goes on to be like, if an event violated nature's, like that, it's not possible because nature and how things work and how things operate have been doing that for millions and millions of years. Like if Hume saw the miracle of the sun, he'd be like, that is not real. Everybody was going crazy or something, because the sun doesn't just change out of nowhere. The law of nature states that it rises and falls, and it shines and moves, but it doesn't just spin and change colors and shoot, whatever happened there. You know what I mean? So he'd be like, that's not real. And it would take a testimony that would overrule the laws of natures, and according to him, that's not possible. Like, you can't. There's no testimony or witness that would override what happens every single day and what nature does every single day, for millions of years. And he goes on to say, no testimony is sufficient to establish a miracle unless the testimony be of such a kind that its falsehood would be more miraculous than the fact which it endeavors to establish. Basically saying, he talks about the balance of probabilities here. That's his main thing. Just being like, it's only way a miracle would happen is the probability of it not happening is less than the probability that it does. And he uses this argument when talking like about if Jesus walked on water, and like I think the resurrection being like, sure, there's a kind of probability that Jesus did walk on water, and what these people are saying are true, but it's way more plausible and probable that the people who wrote the scriptures were not being true. So we have to believe that, so that Jesus didn't walk on water. That's what he's saying. And he also says that humans are very biased and gullible, so it's unlikely that these events can provide sufficient evidence against a break in the law of nature. Some arguments against Hume would be that they mostly are in like the realm of what natural law is and what their definition is. A lot of people believe that things happen in nature, but just because something out of the ordinary happens or something that never happens doesn't mean it's necessarily a break in nature or a break in the natural law. Like natural law, it doesn't need to be like, it could just be like what we're all seeing, and just because something out of the ordinary happens doesn't mean it's necessarily a break. So some people believe that. Others think other more secular arguments are like, there's no room for discovery. Like, just because I think they're in this reading that there was like something about a giant squid, and most squids are like a certain length, and there's no, just because there's like someone saw a giant squid doesn't, like Hume would be like, no, that's not real. We don't, there's no, we know that squids are this length to this length, and there's no way that would be real. But it could be real. There's still potential that it's real, and it doesn't really allow any scientific discovery. And that's another one of the arguments that is brought up. Some other arguments is that he's too harsh on his view of natural law. Other things would be like, he underestimates the power of witness testimony, and how, like at the miracle of the sun, there's no way that all those people saw this miracle. And so, maybe that is true. Maybe he is wrong on witness testimony. And then a lot of religious people argue against it, because they think that Hume is wrong, because there could just be the possibility that that's just God acting, and it's not a break in nature because God is doing that. God is intervening in life. So it could be that too, Who knows? What do I think? A question on everyone's lips. Personally, I see both sides. I can agree with Hume in the sense that miracles don't just happen. Like, there's just no way that something like that, like the sun just spins and spins and spins. But there's some instances I have the experience in some instances where there is just no other explanation. So I think people are quick to jump to conclusions, and if you're very biased and very religious, that you're quick to be like, oh, that was God, but it could be something else. But there are instances. I've been in a Catholic school for 9 years. I went to church for, I'm not practicing any longer, but I've had that background. I've heard stories about Fulton Sheen, and how this mother, she like came in person to talk to us. She said that her baby had the umbilical cord around the neck, pushed it out, wasn't breathing, was turned blue, all that, was dead and lifeless for hours. They're trying to save him. They pray to Fulton Sheen. The baby miraculously comes alive, stuff like that. Like, that's just hard to believe that there's nothing else. I had an experience with my own grandmother. She was very sick in cancer, in the hospital. She's in system failure, everything, near death. And totally unconscious for like, I think 36 hours. Tried moving her, poking, no reaction to pain, no reaction to drugs, no reaction to family, like none, anyone trying to communicate, absolutely no reaction. She just was laying in the bed unconscious. They bring in the priest. The priest comes in. He's giving her last rites, and at the end, she sits up, holds the priest's hand, says thank you, lays back down, and then she dies 2 hours later. And then she was unconscious that whole other time. So like, there is stuff in life that there is just no other explanation for. I think, obviously coming from a religious background, that's like the main thing that they talk about, is like, you can say all you want that, oh, there's no God, we came from evolution, that the Big Bang Theory, we all just, happened out of here naturally. And, maybe that is true, but they say like, there's no other explanation for some of this stuff. Like, there's no other explanation that many people saw what they saw that, that day in the miracle of the sun, So, you know, it is hard to prove, but I agree with Hume that a lot of laws of nature don't just get broken. Some stuff is, there may be some other explanation, like maybe my grandma just, coincidentally happened to come to consciousness that moment, was able to get that out, and then she, went back to being unconscious. There's so many other explanations, but I think, just having my own experience and stuff like that, there sometimes is really just no other explanation, and that's, I think, the crazy part is, I think that, Hume might have been a little harsh on what he thought, but, to each their own. But yeah, thank you for listening and watching, and yeah, have a good day. Good luck in the fall.